Hello guys, I'm Nitish and I'm going to explain you today about context-free languages and the basic properties and the closure properties. So let's get started. What is context-free language? Context-free languages are generated by context-free grammars. The set of all context-free languages is identical to the set of languages which are accepted by the pushdown automata. And the set of regular languages is a subset of context-free languages. The set of regular languages is subset of the context-free languages. So all the regular languages which are accepted by finite automata will be even also be accepted by the pushdown automata. A context-free grammar is of the form G equals to V sigma P, comma S, where V is the set of variables or non-terminal symbols, sigma is the set of terminal symbols, P is the set of substitution rules or prediction, S it is the start symbol. The set V minus sigma is the set of non-terminal symbols. Context-free grammars has prediction rule of the form A gives rise to alpha, where alpha equals to V, that is set of variables, union sigma, that is a set of terminal symbols, star, and A belongs to the set of variables or the non-terminal symbols. So let's look into an example of context-free grammar. The grammar is defined as 0 parent, 1 parent, and G can be written as V, T, P, S, where V is a set of variable, T is a set of non-terminals, P is prediction, S is the start symbol for this given particular grammar. So V is S in this example. The set of non-terminals are 0, 1 and the productions are defined as S gives rise to epsilon and S gives rise to 0 S1 and S is the start symbol. S is the start symbol. Now let's look into this graph, and here we'll know why regular language are subset of context-free grammar. Regular languages fall under context-free grammar. So all the languages which are regular will also be accepted by pushdown automata. So now we'll look into the closure properties of context-free languages. Context-free languages are closed under union. If L1 and L2 are two context-free languages, then L1 union L2 is also a context-free language. So now let's look into the proof for this theorem. Let L1 and L2 be generated by the context-free grammar G1 equals to V1, T1, P1, S1 and G2 equals to V2, T2, P2 and S2 respectively. Without the loss of generality, subscript each non-terminal of G1 with a 1 and each non-terminal of G2 with a 2 so that V1 intersection V2 is pi. This one is important, V1 intersection V2 is pi. Next, define the context-free grammar G that generates L1 union L2 as follows. G equals to V1 union V2 union S, T1 union comma T2, P1 union P2 and union of the productions S gives rise to S1 or S2 comma S. A derivation starts with either S gives rise to S1 or S gives rise to S2. Subsequent steps use productions entirely from G1 or entirely from G2. Each word generated thus is either a word in L1 or a word in L2. Now let's look into few examples. The first example, uh, assume that L1 is in palindrome. Palindrome is nothing but a string which will be the same if you read from the starting or from the end. So the productions are of the form S gives rise to ASA, BSB or A or B or epsilon and L2B language A par n, B par n where n is greater than or equals to 0, which is defined by the production S gives rise to ASB or epsilon. Then the union language is defined by S gives rise to S1 or S2. This step will decide whether you want to choose S1 or S2, that is palindrome, or the language A parent, B parent. And the rest is the same. S1 gives rise to A, S1A, or B S1B, and it gives rise to single A or single B or epsilon, and S2 gives rise to A, S2B or an epsilon. And the second example is a language L1 where L1 is defined as A parent, B parent, C parent where M is greater than 0 and N is greater than 0, and L2 is defined as A parent, B parent, C parent where N is greater than 0 and M is greater than 0. So now L3, it is defined as union of L1 and L2. So it is basically A parent, B parent, C parent union A parent, B parent, C parent where N is greater than or equals to 0 and M is also greater than or equals to 0 is also context free. L1 says number of A's should be equal to number of B's, and L2 says number of B's should be equal to number of C's. The union says either of the two conditions to be true, so it is also context free language. Now, context free languages are closed under concatenation. If L1 and L2 are CFLs, then L1.L2 is also a context free language. Now, the proof which we looked for union, it is somewhat similar to this one. We assume L1 and L2 be the CFGs with which are generated by G1, G2 without loss of generality. We have to choose that V1 intersection V2 is pi and define the CFG G that generalizes L1, L2 as follows. G equals to V1 union V2 union S, T1 union T2, P1 union P2, and union of S gives rise to S1 S2, S. Each word generated thus is a word in L1 followed by a word in L2. Example, let L1 be a palindrome defined by S gives rise to ASA, BSB, A or B or epsilon, and L2 be A parent, B parent where N greater than or equals to 0 defined by S gives rise to ASB or epsilon. Then the concatenated language is defined by S gives rise to S1, S2, and S1 is similar for the L1, that is AS1, BS1B, A, B or epsilon, and S2 it is AS2B or epsilon. Context-free languages are closed under clean closure. Suppose if L1 is a context-free language, then L1 closure is also a context-free language. Proof, let L1 be generated by the CFG G1 equals to V1, T1, P1, S1. Without loss of generality, we need to subscript each non-terminal of G1 with a 1. And then, this is important, we have to define the CFG that generates L1 closure as follows. G equals to V1 union S, T1, P1 union, and S gives rise to S1S or epsilon, S. Each word generated is either epsilon or some sequence of words in L1. So this is epsilon. This one is epsilon. Every word in L1 star, that is some sequence of 0 or more words in L1, can be generated by G. So example, L1 is A parent, B parent where N is greater than or equals to 0, which is given by the productions as gives rise to A as B or epsilon. L1 closure is defined. L1 closure is also defined as A parent, B parent where N is greater than or equals to 0 closure, which is also context free, and S gives rise to S1S or epsilon, and S1 gives rise to A S1B or epsilon. It is these two are the prediction for this L1 closure equals to A parent, B parent where N is greater than or equals to 0 closure. Context-free languages are not closed under intersection. Now, assume that L1 and L2 are two context-free languages, then L1 intersection L2 may not be a context-free language. Proof, L1, let L1 equals to A parent, B parent, A par M, where N, M is greater than or equals to 0, is generated by the following prediction. S gives rise to XA, X gives rise to AXB or epsilon, A gives rise to capital A, small a or epsilon. And L2 is defined as A parent, B par M and A par M, where N, M is greater than or equals to 0, which is generated by the following predictions. S gives rise to AX, X gives rise to XB or epsilon, A gives rise to capital A, small a or epsilon. Now, the intersection of L1 and L2 is A par N, B par N and A par N, where N is greater than or equals to 0, which is not to be context-free languages it is not accepted by pushdown automata, so it is not a context-free language. Context-free languages are not closed under complementation. Assume L1 is a context-free language, then L1 complement may not be a context-free language. Proof. We have proven this by contradiction. Now we know that context-free languages are closed under union. If they are closed under complement, then they are even closed under intersection, which is false. More formally, assume that the complement of every context-free language is a context-free language. Now, L1 and L2 are two context-free languages. Since context-free languages are closed under union and we are assuming they are closed under complement, the L1 intersection L2 can be written as L1 bar union L2 bar whole complement. Now we assume that L1 bar is context-free language. So L1 bar union L2 bar is also a context-free language, and we assume that complement of context-free language is a context-free language. So the whole complement of L1 bar union L2 bar should also be a context-free languages, but the right hand side, that is L1 intersection L2, we already proved that it is not a context-free language. So we came to a contradiction. So therefore, we conclude that context-free languages are not closed under complementation. Intersection with a regular language. Let L1 be a context-free language and L2 be a regular language, then L1 intersection L2 is a context-free language. Proof. The idea here is to take a pushdown automata n for L1 and a deterministic finite automata m for L2, and we need to construct a new PDSA n bar for L1 intersection L2. Now n bar will be a product automation of m and n, making a move according to both m and n, each step simultaneously. In addition, n bar will use its own stack to simulate the stack of n, and this is a formal proof. We can look into this, and we shall further proceed with the other closure properties of context-free languages. Context-free languages are not closed under set difference. So let's look into the proof. We can prove this property by words. We know that there exists L belongs to context-free language such that L complement does not belongs to context-free languages, which we proved in the which we proved earlier, that its complement is not context-free. But sigma closure by L is L complement. Since sigma closure and L are both context-free, this shows that context-free languages is not closed under set difference. The other properties where context-free languages are closed under are as follows: a reversal, homomorphism, epsilon-free homomorphism, inverse homomorphism, substitution, epsilon-free substitution, and clean plus. So guys, I'm concluding this video here. I hope that you got a basic idea what context-free grammar and context-free languages are and their properties. So thank you.